Are you convinced that Lando Norris can hold off his teammate Piastri and Red Bull's Max Verstappen all season?
I think he can. I think the pace is there. I'm just not convinced that he's going to be as mistake free as I expect Max Verstappen to be, and that is going to be Verstappen's opportunity to capitalize here. Now, I know Max also made a mistake. All three of the top three, I say that. I know Piastri didn't finish in the top three, but all three of the three cars that we expected to be up there fighting for those podium spots made some sort of mistake. Obviously, the two McLarens went off together. I know there was another period where Max went off as well, but I think that's really what we saw last year, right? When we got to the second half of the season, it was clear McLaren had the dominant car, and even Ferrari seemed like on their best weekend they could take the fight to Red Bull. But Max, A, had such a big gap built up, and B, was just still as consistent and as strong as he is as a driver, was able to hold on to that championship lead. Whereas Lando, I mean, how many times do we talk about him taking pole position and then bottling it on lap one or giving up the lead and losing a position on lap one, even if he wasn't on pole position? It seemed like sometimes he would continue to drop spots on the starts, and that just kind of set him kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak, and have to work his way back up through the race. Max Verstappen rarely, if ever, does that. So if McLaren, I think, have the car, they absolutely have the car that can give Lando Norris or maybe even Oscar Piastri a shot at fighting for a World Drivers' Championship. And I would still say they're probably my picks to win the Constructors again this year. But Max Verstappen does not make those kinds of mistakes, like I said. So if Lando can take this momentum and carry it throughout the season and be perfect, I think that's what it's going to take to beat Max Verstappen over the course of a full season. So can he do it? Absolutely. Will he do it? I want to see more than just one race. And like I said, he even made a mistake in this race. He was lucky to get away with it. His teammate Oscar Piastri did not. But I think that if he can continue this form and be mistake free, he absolutely has a shot at taking the fight to them all season long.
I think that we're going to find out one way or another if Lando Norris is truly a championship caliber driver, which has been a very big conversation on social media since his meteoric rise last season. I don't know exactly where I fall in that camp. I don't think I've seen enough of Lando, contending for wins just yet to really crown him in that way and say that, yes, this is a championship caliber driver. But what I will say is that yesterday's race, or last night's, today's, whichever, the race in Australia, it displayed that Lando has definitely matured as a driver. I feel like when he was earlier in his career, he would get into these kinds of situations where he would be leading a race and just bottle it one way or another. And to see him fend off the challenge from his teammate, which, obviously Piastri had his own exceptionally weird issue happen as they were trying to dive onto pit road there with those slick tires when it randomly got wet. I also recognize that yesterday's race is not really a true barometer of how this season's going to go, how each weekend's going to play out. And I can't really say for certain whether McLaren has like the raw pace to kind of slash out that Verstappen edge that he has on the competition right now. But at the same time, I can say that Lando Norris showed me a lot of maturity and discipline in that drive that I feel like I haven't seen from him, throughout his entire career. So I lean towards saying that Lando's definitely showing that he can be a championship caliber driver with that drive that he had yesterday, but it was such a weird race with a lot of insane circumstances happening that I really can't say that it's a true barometer of what we'll see throughout the rest of the season. So I guess I'll reserve my judgment for probably like week 4.
And I have to agree with what you said down about Lando Norris. I truly believe that he has grown up a lot as a driver, because the Lando Norris from early last season, the year before that, with Max Verstappen chasing him like that, he probably would have ended up, throwing the race away right there. And for him to hold off Max Verstappen in those circumstances, because at one point in like the final 10 laps or so, I was like, yeah, it looked like Lando had this in the bag unless something happened. Then all of a sudden, Max Verstappen is coming and coming and coming. And I think if Max Verstappen had maybe just 1, 2, even 3 more laps, he might have gotten there. But luckily, Lando was coming to the checker flag, ended up taking the race victory. And I also agree that we're probably going to have to get a few races in, obviously, since this was the very first one, to see where they all stack up and if Lando Norris and McLaren are truly going to be world championship contenders this year. But getting a win in Melbourne, Australia, definitely a great start to his 2025 season for him and McLaren.